As a dad, a role I take very seriously. It's the biggest gift in the world. I realized though, as time was progressing and I was not seeing the forest from the trees, that I was struggling emotionally being a dad. Not necessarily a bad way. It's just things were happening. I was going through the day-to-day process. I didn't think I was doing the best job. In business and anything in life, I have such a high bar set for excellence. Of course, I'm going to do the same thing for being a present, intentional dad. And as the days were going on, I was so hard on myself. I'm so hard on myself again in business and a lot of different things. It definitely correlates, and I'm sure you guys either watching or listening, probably the same thing. If you're hard on yourself in other facets of life, you're going to be hard on yourself as a dad. So I realized at one point, after communication and conversations with great people in my life, it doesn't have to be this way. I don't have to be so hard on myself. It's not like I would lower the bar expectation for myself as a dad. It's actually the opposite. I should reevaluate all the things that I'm so hard on myself for and just change my headspace. It wasn't about lowering the bar expectation, about being such a good dad or why it's so important, because it still is to the second the most important thing to me. Raising my two daughters, the biggest gift in the world, but I take it very seriously. I had to kind of revamp my thought processes, cognitive thoughts, how that turns into different behaviors, and really reframe this into something that's more of an exciting, positive journey with learning experiences versus just every day being so straight up hard on myself for what I perceive as failure. So if you're a dad and you're listening or you're watching and you feel that it's something that's super important to you, which I'm sure that it is, or it should be if you're a dad, right? I wonder if for all of us, myself included, if I just pulled up the hood and we looked under, into the brain of some of the thought processes. So as an example, your kid has something they're doing at night. You show up a little bit late. What happens the rest of the night? I'm a failure. I'm a failure. They're going to realize they think I don't love them. They're going to turn out to be, bad kids, feel abandoned, feel neglected, all because you showed up 5 or 10 minutes late. Maybe you were the guy standing in the back at a play. I've been there. Or, if it was a Sunday morning after you've been out late Saturday night and you're, similar to what I do, maybe instead of going to bed at 8:30 with your little cherubs, you let them stay awake till 12 or even 1. Oh my God, what a horrible dad, right? Maybe have some fun watching movies. I'm enjoying lately watching 90s movies with my kids, like Little Giants and Little Manhattan and all these cool little movies that now my kids, when I was their age, they're watching movies that I watched when I was their age. They stayed awake a little bit late and the next day they're just off, right? And maybe you're off, right? Maybe you didn't sleep well. Our nighttime routine is so amazing. I go into one of their rooms, lay with them for a little bit, go in another room, lay with her a little bit. Right, we have our special songs, we have all of our routines and our quality time. But the problem is we do that at 12 or 1. Sometimes I fall asleep very quick. And then, if you know anything, dads of the world, if you fall asleep with your kids, I'm sure you would empathize. And you have to wake up to go into the next kid's room. And then you kind of fall asleep again. Then you go into your own room. It really does affect REM and deep sleep and all that stuff. And I struggle going to bed the third time now, right? So what happens? The next day, it's now Sunday. And something happens with your kids and you lose your patience a little bit. Maybe you snap a little bit at them or you're not really as present mentally. And again, they see it. Maybe something happens. Maybe, the situation kind of escalates a little bit and all the negative headspace comes in, right? If we lift up the hood, what's in your head, dads? Oh my God, I failed. I shouldn't have, shoulda, coulda, woulda, super guilt. Say in the case of my case, it's shared custody. So I see my kids about half the time. Oh my God, this is the last day before I drive them back to school tomorrow. And I just ruined the weekend. They're going to remember this for the next handful of days until I see them again. I'm the worst, right? All that stuff is wrong, and I realize, and this happened consistently. You're just at dads of the world. You're just being human. Humans don't bat 1,000, right? When you say bat 1,000, imagine a baseball player. Every time they went up to bat, they got on base or got a single or a double or a triple, a home run. So out of 10 times, whether they got on base or whatever it was, batting 1,000 means that you're flawless. I hate to break it to you. I don't care the best dads in the world. Nobody's flawless. I'm not flawless. I am very far from flawless. And what I can tell you, what I realize is it's not about being flawless. It's about working on your craft every single day. There's really typically nothing in this world that you can do and kind of bat 1,000 or be perfect at. Because again, our journey as human beings is that there are learning experiences throughout. But I was so hard on myself. I was making the whole process, the whole journey so unenjoyable. And you would think, and I realized so late in the game, and my, vision or goal for you guys is to kind of get this realization a little bit faster than I did, is it's not about all the negative head speak and being so hard on yourself. Now, of course, you should have a standard of excellence for how you're going to dad, quote unquote, your kids. It's very important. But you don't have to be so hard on yourself as the things happen where you're just human. I hate to break it to you. We're all dads. we're going to be human for quite some time. There's no way to change the fact that we're actually human beings. Human beings are flawed creatures, right? That we make mistakes. Sometimes the emotions get to us, the biology, the sleep deprivation as a dad. Not every dad's financial picture is as good as they would like, at least in this moment. So I realized in that moment that it was time for me to change my journey and start enjoying the journey, enjoying and embracing the learning moments, not being so hard on myself. And I did that 3 ways, believe it or not. So the 3 things that helped me in my journey, and I could tell you at this very moment, I feel more of a sense of peace. I feel less, guilt and anger and frustration at myself. I feel more excited about the upcoming time. Like, as I said, I share custody with my children, with my 2 daughters, with their mother. So as I'm about to get them, I feel more of a sense of peace and calm and excitement and kind of invigorated to be a dad instead of like, oh my God, my little girls are coming. That's so amazing. I wonder what I'm going to screw up this time, right? I wonder if I'm going to mess up their hair this time. I wonder if maybe the outfits. I mean, if you look at me, I'm a bro. I'm a dude, right? I'm an amazing girl dad. It's definitely one of my superpowers and I love it. I'm not the best at necessarily dressing them. And I've improved. My oldest is turning 10 this year, my youngest 8. I'd say growing up, I wasn't, as they grew up, I wasn't exactly the best with the bows and the colors and all that. But instead of, framing that in such a way where it's so negative, I realized that it's time to kind of flip that narrative on its head and be excited. Now, same thing in business. I was so hard on myself, owning a mortgage company. Now we're rolling out DadderUp, which I'm so excited about. When you're hard on yourself, the standard of excellence is so high. It's so easy to not be perfect or flawless or not bat 1,000. So the same thing with being a parent. There were things I did that I'm frustrated at, right? Just net effect, me having shared custody. Initially at least, I was like, oh my God, it's a failure. My kids, I grew up personally in a divorced house. I never wanted that for my kids. They're growing up now in a divorced house. Never wanted that, for my kids, as I said. I've ruined their life. Here we go. History repeats itself. My kids are going to grow up and it's just going to be like the most horrible childhood. And they're going to clearly, bad things will happen to them downstream. That was ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thought process. But nonetheless, I'm human. And this is some of the stuff that I thought. So I redefined that it wasn't a failure, that I turned into a success. A big believer in sometimes, it's not for not all, married dads. Sometimes when you're still married to your spouse and you have kids, quality time versus quantity of time, sometimes, believe it or not, I found for myself, my quality time with my kids, it actually improved. Now, of course, I'm seeing them less, so the quantity isn't there, which isn't ideal. I'm missing things. It's frustrating. It's not an ideal situation. But so to kind of like, what's the silver lining? I've made the quality time that I had with them better. Now, when I used to see them every day and every night, I remember I took it for granted. Without a doubt. Never thought I wouldn't see them every day and every night. And even when I was with them and I put them to bed and we had all those quality time moments, I found that was I there mentally? No. Was I thinking about work or about building a mortgage company or about, anything else? Attentively present? Was I? I don't think so. But I wouldn't have had all these actualizations and realizations if, unfortunately, I didn't get a divorce, then I became a solo parent. And I realized, like instead of being so hard on myself, there are some blessings that do come from it, believe it or not. So that was one of the things that I kind of redefined what failure was. Specifically, now that I was a quote unquote divorced dad, that my quality time actually improved. Or, basic things of failure. How many of you guys watching? How many of you guys are listening? You miss something specifically, right? You miss a soccer game for whatever reason. You show up late for something, or you come home, you're an entrepreneur, you're just rolling out a business, just like I am with DadderUp. We're rolling out a new movement, redefining what it means to be a present dad, the new modern day operating system of dadding. And you had a stressful day, or maybe like, you wanted an investor and they didn't come through, or you thought you were going to get more people interested in being on a webinar and that didn't happen, or, anything at work, maybe you got let go, whatever it was, just in that moment, you just had a bad day. You come home, your kids are there to greet you, dad, dad, dad. And what do? You lose your patience to say, hey kids, how are you? Walk right by them. They're trying to lean into you, build that quality time, build that presence, build those moments. And you just like basically giving them the brush off, giving them all the meta messages that they're just not that important. Same thing with being on your technologies. I struggled with this, and my oldest daughter basically broke down in tears, which crushed me, literally crushed me. Talk about someone that's hard on himself. I wanted kids so bad, and it was a journey to have my 2 kids for sure. And then I have them, and then eventually downstream a handful of years, the meta messages is like, they're not that important to me, or my oldest felt she just wasn't important enough to me. We're gonna be off technology and crying nonetheless. I mean, when girls cry in front of me, I cry. It's like a thing. let alone my daughters, but it was brutal. But I realized in that moment, yes, had I been failing, sure, but I wasn't a failure because I care. I care about my daughter's feelings. I care about being a great dad. So it was in that moment I decided, and we had this great kind of moment where I agreed to be off my technology when I come in the house, to put my phone away, put it on silent, spend great quality time. If they have any type of feelings or anything they want to communicate to me, I'm very big, I'm very intimidating. Not to my daughters. I think it's the opposite. They're actually try to intimidate me. But we created a safe word called chicken with my eldest daughter. Just basically means if she wants to talk and she feels like I'm not listening or I'm not being present, she says the word chicken. I kind of like, my ears pop up and I get it now, believe it or not. It's pretty brutal, but I get it. And then if she wants to speak or they want to have some type of private time, we actually go to my laundry room, shut the door, we call it the office. I pick either kid up, put them on top of the laundry machine. So we're kind of more eye to eye, which I think is better for communication, feeling less intimidated, feeling more open to communicate their feelings. And we have these really great intimate moments where they just tell me about their day. Maybe they wanted to cry about something, maybe something happened at school, but they just feel in a safe environment. So that was the positive that I got from feeling like such a failure. So I realized the first thing, like I said, failure is not making mistakes, Dad. Failure is not making mistakes, dads, right? Failure is when you give up. If you were on your technology, if you were late to their soccer game, right? If you lost your patience, God forbid, if you couldn't, like for me for a while, I was a bit of a chub. I couldn't participate in soccer or whatever it is as good as I should have been at the, weight that I was at. I wasn't a failure because of it. I would have been a failure if I just gave up, right? If I didn't listen to my daughter crying for my technology, if I didn't decide, hey, next time, maybe I should get to the event 15 minutes early and hedge so I'm not late. Hey, you know what? Maybe I should start a weight loss journey and put away the Uber Eats and the extra couple glasses of wine every night and kind of focus on 0-calorie seltzer and protein and do the 10,000 steps, which I literally hate, but it's been great for me. Maybe I should do that stuff. My refusal to stay down when I was knocked down in those moments, that to me is the biggest blessing. And I redefine what failure is. Failure to me, like I said, is just not being stuck down and just straight up giving up. It's the opposite. The opposite of failure is understanding that you will not be perfect. It's progress before perfection. And are we ever getting to perfection? No. So really it's progress, not perfection. Really, it's a shared journey. So us collectively as dads, like we're not, by doing this by ourselves. There's millions and millions of dads going through the same thing. So it's really our job as a collective group of dads to realize that number one, it's time to be less hard on ourselves. And number two, just understand we're not failing because we're not staying down when we're knocked down, right? We're kind of leaning into becoming better dads. And by working on our crafts every day, progress, not perfection, that's really what we should aspire to. And for me, it helped because I redefined what it actually meant to be a failure, that I wasn't failing. If you made it this far, it means that you're serious for sure about being a great dad. But if you want to improve upon it, just like I did, you have to be honest with yourself. And to be honest with yourself, the first thing is you need an assessment. How am I showing up as a dad now, and what can I improve upon? So I created the Anchor assessment. I actually started for myself, and I'm offering it to you guys for free. So go in the description, click the link, and take the assessment. What it does is it checks you on 5 pillars of being a great dad: presence, patience, strength, leadership, and legacy. And it'll tell you what you're doing great at. Cool. Props to you, but also what needs work. After you take the assessment, you get a free 50-page workbook. And what it's going to do is it's going to help you focus on the things that you're not doing all that well that you want to improve. So I'm going to give you day-to-day things, all sorts of advice, but that free workbook is really going to be the key to improving in the 5 pillars on the areas that need work. So that was the first thing. And then I realized it opened up the second thing, which is validation. What is validation? It's really getting acknowledgement for the emotion. Like, hey, that Sunday, which I referenced Saturday, we stayed up late, watched all the cool 90s movies with my kids. It was awesome, right? Sunday, woke up, the 3 of us, extra cranky. Maybe I wasn't as patient as I should be, because that's hard. It is hard going to bed late as a working dad, an entrepreneur, providing for my kids, not getting enough sleep, trying to get back to sleep, struggling, waking up early. I'm just one of those guys, when my daughters are awake, I have to be awake too. I just don't feel comfortable personally if my kids are like downstairs and I'm upstairs sleeping. But when you're tired and you have kids and your responsibility is their safety and protection, feeding them and, making sure that they're dressed well and showered and all this stuff, it is hard. It is hard. It is hard. It is hard, especially as a solo dad, right? I've had the blessing of having assistants, and I could tell you with assistance or another body there just to help, right? Your 1v2 now turns into 2v2, or sometimes even better. Do you know how much easier that is? So it's time to acknowledge that journey is hard, right? And it feels good for me saying it right now. If you watching, for you guys that are watching, for anyone that's listening, doesn't it feel good if you're by yourself right now and you just say, it's hard? And I'm not saying it's pity potty. I chose this, right? I wanted kids and I knew it was going to be hard, but it is hard. It is very hard. You're responsible. These amazing little creatures, I could say in my life, the best 2 moments of my life, I could tell you exactly what they were. And both of those 2 moments were caught on a picture, right? Of holding both my kids, both were actually C-section babies. The only benefit as a guy, like I feel for the woman, of course, benefit as a guy is you get skin to skin first. And I had a lot of pride in becoming a dad. It was the best moment of my life holding both of them for the first time, but it's also the scariest. And now I'm responsible for this little creature. And guess what? It's hard. Or to put it in other terms, right? You're working all day. I have the benefit of my daughters play lacrosse, and there's so many great dads that I see watching their daughters play lacrosse, say on a Wednesday night. So I spoke with this other dad, an amazing dad. I think he has 3 kids. And he's like, it's typical. I work all day. And then it's, obviously as your kids get older, it's the whole chauffeur, you're a professional chauffeur game. Might be, a new version of like the dad Uber. And he has to go from here and over to here. And his daughter was exceptional at basketball, which is great. But like, he's got to travel everywhere. And that's the weekend. And guess what? Like human beings sometimes want a little downtime, let alone a dad, probably in his 40s, just wants a little downtime from a hard week. He's not going to get it. Why? Because he's busy being a great dad, bringing his kids to all the different activities. But guess what? It's hard. It's hard. So for me, the second thing was when I finally got the validation that the journey that I'm going through is hard and my struggles are real, but it makes sense. Those struggles, it made sense that I was feeling that way. It's just this great feeling, right? And like I said, dads, right now, whether you're in your car or you're watching this, not necessarily if you're in front of your kids or if you're by yourself, would be more ideal. You say like, hey, listen, I'm doing my best. This is a hard journey. It is rewarding. It is awesome, right? It's the biggest blessing I feel in the world, especially having me being a girl dad. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world, but it is hard. And it's time that we start celebrating each other, validating that it is a difficult journey, because I think just the human need, right, for validation, guys have emotions, which is the point of my lead into this. Having that feeling makes sense and it's okay. And it makes my journey, at least for me, a lot easier knowing that what I'm feeling is validated and it makes sense. And I'm not like some rando on an island feeling away. I'm wrong in my feelings. I'm making excuses. I'm failing. And it just really helped me once I had that really cool moment of getting validation. And I got the validation from myself. I got the validation from people that I love. I got the validation from great people in my circle. I'm blessed now to have a really good circle of, friends and family and business partners. But once I got that, it really, really helped me in my journey as a dad. Now, the third piece, I kind of really wrapped it all up with a pretty bow for me, especially for me as an emotional, caring, very intentional dad, someone that admitted that I had to kind of work on this quite a bit. But, it's one thing to feel validated. It's another thing to get some reassurance, right? And what is reassurance? Reassurance is just like it's going to be okay. As an example, a big piece of my life is Pop. We'll call him Poppy, right? So my dad's dad, his nickname was Poppy. Obviously Poppy and Nanny, they played a huge role in my life. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the lessons Poppy taught me have become very true, very recent. For example, he taught me time moves faster as you get older. Now think about that, guys. Time moves faster as you get older. And I have found that to really ring home and be so true. Specifically, unfortunately, my grandma Nanny passed away a handful of months ago. Poppy at this point has dementia and he has no clue. When I go and visit him, he smiles and we have all these like little, fun things we used to do, and he smiles, and I would hope deep down inside he knows who I am. But dementia is a really crappy thing. Anyone that's experienced it, you have my empathy for sure. I'm experiencing it right now with Poppy, who's been super important to me. But what did Poppy and Nanny do? What's some of the silver lining of my amazing relationship with them? Once I kind of came into maturity, when I was able to have real conversations, up until probably a couple of years ago, when that kind of, they really hit old age and it kind of went away, is they give me amazing validation. What is validation? It's going to be okay. This is going to happen. Or guess what? If you did fail in that moment where you lost your patience, there's always time to make it better. Or if you did miss that thing, there's always time to kind of make it up to your kids. Or, oh, not only is I understand what you're going through, validation, right? All this other stuff, at least in our life, that happened to us too. And look what happened. Validation is really pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but it's also hope. So we, again, as humans, dads are emotional creatures, right? Which is fine. We as humans, though, we need that sense of hope. We need that sense of like, I'm going through this journey. It's super difficult. And even if I make mistakes or would consider, having failures, or at least I'm making things that I'm learning from and I'm working on every single day, that it's not going to ruin our kids' lives. That's a validation. Or it's not going to turn them into creatures that, kind of turn on us, right? Not every daughter has to have issues with their dad, right? Daddy issues, right? There's so many, it's almost become a joke, like, oh, she's not doing well, she has daddy issues. Well, that's ridiculous. Daddy issues have become almost like a term that's just like a joke, right? Or stepkids is a big black cloud over becoming a stepfather at times, or I'm a stepkid, right? And none of that stuff has to make sense. And that's why I'm such a big believer in the DadderUp movement, kind of redefining what it means to be a step parent. We're calling it actually a flex dad, which is super cool, just to have something new and fresh and not a necessarily black cloud over something that's a blessing. Or this whole daddy issue thing. I mean, it's ridiculous, but I almost would say the dad that redefines failure, that gets the validation he needs, and then the reassurance he needs, that term, oh my God, X, Y, and Z happened. It's not what I wanted to happen. My kid's going to have daddy issues. No, they won't. So how do you know that? Either number one, you start in your own head and you're strong enough to understand that you're going to make mistakes when they happen. You instantly have to be very, introspective, retrospective about what happened and work on it. Number two, you could also communicate with your kids and say, hey, listen, daddy made a mistake. I'm really sorry. I raised my voice a little bit, or I was a little bit late. When I apologize to my kids are, at this point, they're 7 and 9. When I apologize, they feel like I'm on their same level and they feel heard. And then on top of that, there's always the opportunity to make it better, right? To right the wrong. So reassurance for me was kind of like the bring it home concept that really helped me kind of, again, reframe my journey as a dad and not be so hard on myself, enjoy the journey more, understand I'm going to make mistakes and kind of work on them every single day. But really, the reassurance side was understanding that there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to get better, right? If you were late to the game, you can improve and apologize and then right that wrong. Or if you did lose your patience, or if you're a little bit too overweight, like, someone on video was, you can lose the weight. It's just understanding that there's hope. So with you, as long as when you wake up, when you look in the mirror and you're all by yourself, right? You're not in front of people, you're not on your technology, and you're brutally honest call with the man in the glass. And you're like, you know what? Me showing up today to be the best version of myself as a dad is top priority for me. But I can promise you out there, all you dads listening, all you dads watching, that if you just show up and you just try every single day and first have that really hard conversation with yourself and that actualization, realization that this is something that you want to improve. I can't make every single dad in this world want to work on every single day being a better dad. Sometimes you gotta, shake them loose a little bit so they see kind of the forest from the trees. All they're doing, they're doing the dadding every day. Maybe what they're doing every single day is not perfect, or it's flawed, or it could be improved. I saw that with myself. I thought I was doing a great job of presence. I was just being physical presence. I was just there. I wasn't there mentally. And I had to really work on it. My kids called me out. I had that radical kind of cataclysmic, if you want to call it, moment where my oldest started crying. And that's what it took for me. So my, hope or wish for you guys is, with the understanding something you want to improve, at least on the back end, like I said, the last piece on the reassurance side, it will improve. Maybe it won't improve today, maybe not tomorrow. But if you work on something every single day as a human being and it matters to you, putting in that time, effort, and energy every day, eventually over time, it'll shake loose. And what you're looking for, it will happen for you guys. So there you have it. That's kind of like the looking under the hood, seeing my personal Andrew Russell journey as a dad. First I was, a married dad, then I became a solo parent. I've been very, very hard on myself. I felt feelings of failure, guilt. I'm ruining my kids' lives. I laugh, but when I tell you, when you're all by yourself in your head, these are definitely feelings, probably even more aggressive that I don't want to admit here. How did I kind of flip that journey and kind of redefine in my head what I should be thinking? Why am I thinking this way? And kind of redo and revamp the journey for myself as a dad. Once I did all that stuff, it's completely changed the game for me. I can tell you that right now I'm, without a doubt, the most excited about being a dad. I feel the most comfortable with my kids. I feel like we're in the best place. But first, it took redefining what failure meant. Then it took being honest with my feelings. This is how I'm feeling, but also understanding that it made sense. And it was so nice to hear that how I was feeling, it being difficult, being so hard on myself, whatever it was, it made sense. Right. And once I understood that it made sense how I was feeling, getting that reassurance, what I call reassurance pudding, was always a joke with my grandfather, but a little reassurance pudding, but just understanding that no matter what happens, it will work out. If you put in the time, you put in the effort, put in the energy, and it's something you focus on, I challenge you, dads, as much as 75 hard, which is important, or your macros, or business, or your relationship with your spouse. That's very important too. But guess what? Your relationship with your kids matters just as much, or maybe I would argue even more. If you put in that time, effort, and energy, if you do the thing, I call it, if you just do the thing every day and you work on that relationship, you have the reassurance from me, regardless what anyone else says, that the relationships will get exactly where you want to be. You're going to have to work on it every single day. It's not going to be a one-time thing. You don't just spend money and it improves, which is obviously not going to work. You don't just show up once on time and it's going to work. It's an everyday thing, in perpetuity. But if you're willing to put in that time, effort, and energy, I promise you the results, you will love them. All right, guys, this was a really cool convo about redefining what failure meant, how we all need validation, and of course, the reassurance that comes with it to understand that if you put in the work, it's only going to improve. But make sure you check out our next chat, our next talk, where we're going to talk about specifically the dad journey. You don't have to feel alone like I felt for so many years. It's a shared journey, so make sure you check it out.